What's up, guys? Thanks for coming to my channel. The other day, I was watching a video from PragerU that pissed me off so bad, I just had to share it with you guys. If you're not familiar with PragerU, they're a right-wing content farm that churns out political and culture war propaganda. A lot of it's aimed at kids, all of it sucks, and this particular video of theirs was so annoying, I thought it deserved its own little rebuttal. So, here we go.
20 or 50 or even 100 years ago, if you asked someone which of the world's countries was the most diverse, most equitable, and most inclusive, they would have almost certainly answered the United States. Not anymore.
Erroneous! Erroneous!
So, about 20 seconds in, and we discover that this entire video will be built upon the ludicrous premise that for the last 100 years, everyone thought the United States was the most equitable and inclusive country in the world. This is blatantly untrue. When exactly does PragerU suppose that was the case? The 1920s, when we weren't among even the first 20 nations in the world to grant women the right to vote, and the Tulsa Race Massacre left 10,000 African Americans homeless? The 1930s, when the Great Depression saw unemployment rates for African Americans double that of white Americans? The 1940s, when we put Japanese Americans into internment camps and government policies segregated African Americans to urban housing projects? The 1950s, when McCarthyism turned neighbor against neighbor, Rosa Parks was told to move to the back of a public bus, and Emmett Till was brutally murdered? The 1960s, with countless race riots and the assassinations of both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X? The 1970s, when we were reeling from the effects of an unjust war in Vietnam and homosexuality was still classified as a mental disorder? The 1980s, when government complicity in the crack epidemic and laissez faire racism continued to sabotage African Americans' upward social mobility? The 90s, with the Rodney King riots in LA and discriminatory policies like the Defense of Marriage Act and Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Surely not the 2000s, when we were waging another unjust war, this time in Iraq, while seeing hate crimes against Muslims skyrocket. And look, I'm saying all this as someone who considers themselves a patriot. I love my country, and I'm both grateful and proud to live here. But give me a break. I mean, certainly we've been diverse, that's one of our greatest strengths. But to suggest that we've been a shining example of equity or inclusivity is just insultingly dishonest. PragerU wants to slip this false premise past you early in the video because everything that follows from here will be a reaction to this idea that no one used to think we had any room to improve. Everyone thought we were perfectly equitable and inclusive up until just recently, which is demonstrably false and just maddeningly ridiculous. Let's continue.
The progressive left has hijacked those three words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and turned them into weapons of mass destruction. This DEI trio makes up the neutron bomb that has laid waste to a good part of our educational and corporate institutions.
You know, if the political discourse in this country hadn't eroded so spectacularly over the last decade or so, this level of hyperbole would still be reserved for satire. But alas, here we are with neutron bombs of diversity. So, with that in mind, I suppose let's get back to PragerU's biochemical terrorist attack of lies.
Given the damage that has been done, it might be a good idea to see what these words used to mean and what they mean now. Diversity used to mean that people of different backgrounds were free to join a group or association. Equity used to mean enforcing equal standards for all individuals and groups. Inclusion used to mean allowing people of every background and identity to participate in a group or association.
To be clear, that is generally what those words mean. The reason he's inflecting his voice in that obnoxious and exaggerated way is to lay the foundation for his next preposterous claim that there is one demographic group above all for whom a focus on improving diversity, equity, and inclusivity is directly harmful and unfair. I bet you can tell just by the way he's framing these definitions, but it does get worse.
Now, in their DEI context, these words all mean one thing: applying unequal standards to ensure preferential outcomes for individuals and groups based on race, sex, and gender identity.
Bullshit. You're talking bullshit.
Yeah, no explanation, no examples, just this is what they mean now. But okay, we're playing along, right? Which specific demographic group do you suppose PragerU thinks is suffering these unequal standards? Can you guess? Let's find out.
DEI is ultimately about only one thing: advancing those who are not white, heterosexual, and male at the expense of white, heterosexual men.
Yeah, surprise, it's straight white guys. Do we all get a prize for guessing correctly?
You get nothing.
Again, no examples, no explanation, no evidence, just a pathetic bullshit victim narrative. But they keep going.
When do we know that everything is finally diverse, equitable, and inclusive? There are no good answers to any of these questions. That's a feature, not a bug, of the DEI racket. America will never be able to DEI its way out of its DEI problem. It's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You never reach your goal because it doesn't exist.
So, what this Nimrod is essentially saying now is that we shouldn't strive to be better if we can't articulate the perfect end state to his satisfaction, right? This is nonsense, and smarter people than I have succinctly and convincingly defeated this way of thinking. Notably, French author Voltaire, who famously said, "Perfect is the enemy of good," meaning that just because we might not reach perfection doesn't mean we shouldn't strive ahead. No, we'll never be perfect, and that's okay. Let's try to be better. Back to it.
All this is bad enough, but the DEI fraud is also condescending. It both manufactures and perpetuates victimhood.
It's pretty fucking rich coming from this guy, yeah? He's been sneering at us this whole time as if every lie he spewed is self evident. Like, you should have already known how hard it is out there for white guys. But now he's going to douche-splain condescension and victimhood to us. Priceless.
DEI assumes black people can't hack it on their own. Neither can women or anyone who falls under the LGBTQI plus umbrella. They all need what only DEI can give them because no one can compete with the white, heterosexual Superman.
Did you catch that? Yeah. Straight white guys are apparently being picked on while simultaneously being framed as invincible supermen because this victim narrative comes with a heaping dose of aggrandizement. But they have saved the most outrageous bit for last. Guess what their answer is to all this? Guess what solution they provide? What is the abused and belittled straight white guy to do in the face of such horrendous treatment? Get a load of this.
They're shoving it down our throats. So, how do we stop them? The solution is remarkably simple. Tell the truth. When they say you're racist, tell them the truth. You're not. When they call you a whatever phobe, tell them the truth. You're not.
That's right. Just say no. And I love this whole setup here, by the way. Like, PragerU wants to resonate with their target audience as much as possible, right? So what do? They set up, they're like, hey, you know this totally relatable and everyday occurrence where you're a straight white guy minding your own business and people are yelling at you for being an intolerant bigot? Like, no, that shouldn't be a very familiar or relatable scenario to you. It sounds like maybe you need to stop being a dick. But instead, PragerU's like, are you being called out for your racism? Just double down and deny that shit. Can't keep track of how many different groups of people you're being bigoted toward? Fuck it. Lump it all together as whatever phobia and just continue to repeat,
No, I'm not.
like some kind of brainwashed idiot. Certainly don't engage in any self-reflection of any kind, or don't try to educate or improve yourself in any way. No. That's commie talk. Just barricade yourself inside a fortress of ignorance and denial. And that's it. That's their video, based upon the utterly false premise that up until just 20 years ago, everyone thought the US was supremely equitable and inclusive. PragerU wants to convince us that working to continuously improve our country's DEI is akin to direct victimization of straight white men. This kind of bigoted fear-mongering would be easy enough to dismiss if it weren't so effective at propagandizing large swaths of Americans. We're losing too many people to this shit, and obviously it's not just straight white guys that are falling for it. It's a dangerous problem for which I don't have any magical solutions, but I do think it's important that we continue to call out this kind of dishonest propaganda when we see it. I also think it's important that we keep the powerful tools of empathy and patience on us at all times for difficult and often frustrating conversations. And finally, I want to say that patriotism shouldn't be about being blind to your nation's failures, disgraces, and shortcomings. Rather, it should be about a belief that your nation is strong enough and good enough to learn from its failures, to atone for its disgraces, and to rise above its shortcomings. I believe in my country, and I certainly believe we're a hell of a lot better than the pathetic victim narrative PragerU wants to sell you in that DEI video. And with that, folks, I'll wrap it up. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you sticking around. If you liked this video, please, leave a like on it and leave some of your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. And of course, please do subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for clicking on my video, and I hope I see y'all again soon. Peace out.